Zero is dead. Now we have avenged him. However, we must carry out his last will, which was also our living will. We're gonna go find Sigma and beat him up. That's what I'm trying to get at. Alright, so continuing on through the fortress, I'm guessing we must have a Maverick up here, right? Why else would there be a door? Yep, okay, who we fighting? Oh, cool, alright, so... Armored Armadillo. If you manage to hit him with his weakness... When he stops rolling... Thank you. He is now just Armadillo, and he becomes far easier because he loses the whole absorb your shot mechanic, making this fight far faster, though considering how often he fires, it is a little tedious to have to do this instead. Oh well, either way though. So while we're at it, I should mention, in addition to the change in just general design of Sigma's Fortress, the boss order also changes. Well, actually, technically I already brought that up because I did mention that Vile appears in Stage 3, but all of the regular bosses are also mixed up. They aren't, like, shoved off into a boss room or anything. Maverick Hunter X still keeps the whole, you fight them as you go through the fortress, but you just do them in a different order. Launch Octopus is first, and I'm gonna just mention him and not really any of the others, because I don't care about the order that much. It doesn't matter, there's no sort of symbolic meaning behind the order of the bosses, there's nothing particularly cool about it as far as I know. But Launch Octopus appears first, and he's also the only extra boss with dialogue in the final area, or the normal Mavericks. Basically, the gist is, that's not the real Launch Octopus. These are just replicas of the Mavericks, so they're replicas. Or they just got revived weird, who knows. Either way, you're not gonna have engaging conversations with any of them. Not that they were particularly engaging in the first place, but whatever. Like, Sting Chameleon here, I don't even remember what his conversation was about in Maverick Hunter. But X probably just shouted Maverick, and Sting Chameleon probably just went, hee hee, hell yeah! Love being Maverick, being evil's great, it's the best. So, I don't feel like we're missing much by not having that a second time. But yeah, again, I don't really care about boss order, so I'm not gonna show that off. It's also worth noting, of course, that since Vile appears at the end of this stage in Maverick Hunter X, the boss of this stage becomes a mid-boss instead, though it is otherwise the same thing. We'll get to that in a bit, though, because we've got more bosses to fight. I will say, I feel like Maverick Hunter X does a better job spreading out the bosses? Because, I don't know, it feels like this just kind of goes on forever, this particular stage, and I don't remember Maverick Hunter X being this heavy in a single stage with bosses, but this one is just a majority of boss refights, including, you know, the easy one. As I said, Spark Mandrill is kind of an in-joke in how easy he is. He just gets obliterated by ice so hard that everybody laughs at him and his foolishness. Come, laugh at Spark Mandrill, you'll feel far better. But Doctor, I am Spark Mandrill. Anyway though, anything else? Okay, so... Stage 3 isn't like a super, interesting stage in Maverick Hunter X, but I feel like they do a slightly better job of trying to make something of it. It looks pretty cool. It's like this big place with all these banners. It feels like you are in, the hall proper of Sigma's Fortress. Which, again, this version of the game, it just feels like a generic base, so I don't mind that they made it extra fancy. Oh, break real quick here to say, don't actually use Rolling Cutter on, Launch Octopus. It makes him more difficult. You might think, hey, I should chop off his tentacles. That is a thing you can do. I won't recommend it, though, because look at this fight. Do you want to fight him launching this many missiles? No. He lives up to his name now. He is actually Launch Octopus. He's doing nothing but launching. It sucks. I'm glad I'm not doing the Zero version of this fight, because, good god, that speeds it up enough as it is. So yeah, no, in case you wanted to try that out, don't. It's a very poor idea. Invincibility your way over the spike pit, but I would recommend against it. If you really want to go invincible, just do that for the laser traps instead. You won't suddenly run out of power and die immediately if you don't go fast enough. And here we are at Flame Mammoth, who can also be chopped at with our cutter. This doesn't make him more powerful, unlike Launch Octopus. However, I feel like emotionally this takes a higher toll because Trunkless Flame Mammoth is extremely cursed. Anyway though, I think we're actually getting towards the end of Sigma Fortress, so any other final thoughts on it? I think ultimately I actually do really like the fact that you fight the bosses, like, as you go rather than in one big room. I don't know, I think that feels cooler. I prefer Zero's death being at the start, but I do like the general stage aesthetics of the Maverick Hunter X version. Alright, so here's my favorite, like, generic boss of the Fortress stages. This is D-Rex. D-Rex was actually supposed to be a much larger T-Rex-like robot, but they couldn't finish building it in time, because X and Zero were assaulting the fortress, so once it was clear that the Mavericks were going to fail and X and Zero would be, doing a direct assault, they just mounted the top of this head on top of a tank and just said, screw it, good enough. Unfortunately, it is not good enough. It is in fact a pretty weak boss. You do have to be careful of it hitting the walls, because it does shake the room, and that can knock X on his butt, which is no good for you. Otherwise, very easy boss, but god, I love the conceit of it. Just, they were building an actually very threatening weapon that would have just towered over cities, probably. But they couldn't finish it fast enough, so they just made it a tank. They just repurposed a potentially much larger robot into just anything they could use to guard the fortress. Alright, that's stage 3 though, and this is stage 4. So there are some enemies on the walls here, so if you need to grind you can, but the stages are split so you shouldn't need weapon energy unless you die. Otherwise, it's just a straight path up to the top. Okay, so, when I was a kid, I had a friend who described the final boss of this game to me as you going up and then Sigma is in his pajamas and he sicks his dog on you. Which, that's a very delightful way to misinterpret this sprite. It's a cape, but you know what? We caught Sigma unaware. He was about to go to bed, so he's got his pajamas on, and he's gonna just sick his dog on us. That part is actually true. I didn't believe what he was telling me because I didn't believe the pajama part, but he does throw his dog at you. The dog's name is Velgarder, and he's very easy. He kinda just lunges after you, breathes sometimes, but you just shoot him, and he has a very easy knockback condition, so, what if, instead of prolonging this fight, Hadouken! No counter. Pleb. Fucking idiot DC'd. Couldn't handle it. That's the real reason the Hadouken is a one-hit kill. They just assume you're gonna start projectile spamming, and then they just leave. They can't take it, they don't want to bother. Alright, so, Sigma is taking cues from Vile and ripping off Star Wars for this fight. So, he's got a lightsaber, what is he going to do with it? He's going to dash at you. Sometimes he will fire shots from his forehead gem. Otherwise, however, he's just gonna kinda do this. It's pretty easy to trap him in a pattern, actually. Charged up electric is pretty good. He will have a tendency to deflect smaller shots, so you're going to want to get him mid-jump. Thankfully, the charged version does actually mean you can hit him pretty reliably, even with this weapon. Honestly, I actually really like the charged version of this weapon, even though, for the most part, I don't really like the charged specials that much. I don't know, just never been a huge fan of most of them. But, makes this easier. Goodbye. It is a good thing we were forced to have the, special busters so that we could have that. However, we managed to not destroy Sigma's head, and so he's just going to smugly go up to his final form. This is Wolf Sigma. He's one of those head with disembodied hands bosses. You've seen these before, so you know. You have to jump on top of the hands and hit him with it. In fact, didn't we just fight this guy in Castlevania? I'm pretty sure I just fought this guy in Castlevania. Anyway though, of course you do have to pay attention to the little electric pads on his paws, because they do emit electricity. Since this boss does exist in other games, I guess they just figured out ways to counter just standing on his hand all day and getting free shots. So Wolf Sigma is only weak to two things: Rolling Shield, as displayed here, and a fully charged Buster Shot. And when I say fully charged, I do mean fully charged. That is why you are forced to take Zero's Buster if you did not get the X-Buster upgrade, because you absolutely are going to need a fully charged shot if you run out of Rolling Shield. Also as a note, while Hadouken would be cool to finish Sigma off with, this is the only boss in the game that does not die to Hadouken. So yeah, only charged shots and Rolling Shield will do. But Rolling Shield is pretty easy to hit with, and after that I figured, hey, I have only got 2 shots left, I'm gonna finish him off with Zero's Buster. So, what are you gonna do about that, Sigma? Die? Cool, that's what I was hoping you would do. And so, thanks to Zero's help, X has finished off Sigma, and down goes his floating fortress. Nearby, there's just another cliff, and Kirby's standing on top of that one, watching the halberd go down. This is all happening simultaneously. If Kirby and X didn't finish simultaneously, then Sigma would have revived Heavy Lobster, and then where would we be? Anyway though, enough of that. Here is the first of many endings, where X has won. However, as he stands here, he must contemplate the meaning of war. So, like, if you look at the box art and just general design, you might think that X is the edgier of the two characters we've seen so far, between him and Classic Mega Man. However, Classic Mega Man's younger brother is, while angry at times, far more depressed than Classic ever was. Was there another way? No, Sigma's an ass. Sucks to think about it like that, but nah, we did have to go in there and shoot him. And all X can do is just stand there, knowing that even though he's taken down Sigma, the leader of the rebellion, that's not going to end all violence. Violence will continue happening. X is trapped in the never-ending cycle of war. I mean, it's kind of vague as an ending technically speaking, they're keeping it very open, but you know what? Fitting. X is here to be depressed about this never-ending onslaught of violence he must commit. Only his gun knows for sure. His gun knows the answer is, yeah, you're just gonna have to keep fighting till you keel over, X, sorry about that. And that is Mega Man X. I mean, okay, so the summary for this one's going to be very easy, and that's good, because these are very short credits. Very good credits song, though. I like this one. Very nice tune. Very hopeful, but also a little bit somber, which, again, fits the general tone of, yeah, you won, but like, what is this victory in the grand scheme of things? Anyway, though, yeah, X is a classic for a reason. Great level design, looks fantastic, fantastic music. Honestly, if there's anything I don't like, it's probably the special weapons. They're okay, but as far as first showings go, Actually, it is kind of better than Mega Man 1's first showing, so I'll give it that, but it's not one of my favorites. I feel like I've liked some of the classic series weapon sets more, and I don't feel like the charged weapons really add much, which is... It's so weird, because, like, I really like the Charge Buster in this game, and I think the way X plays is actually far more conducive to not caring about the special weapons as much. I've said so many times for the classic series, they kind of live and die by their weapon set. X I could probably do a Buster-only run and still have a lot of fun with. Though, to be fair, Storm Tornado makes things a lot easier. It makes everything go so much faster. But yeah, that's kind of the problem, though. There are some weapons that are just incredibly broken. Like Storm Tornado just... There's no solution to it for the enemies. You just use it, and unless they're resistant to it, everything just dies. And when I say resistant to it, I mean it has to be bosses. Enemies, no, none of them have enough hits to actually do anything about Storm Tornado. It's the answer to everything. Its efficiency isn't like Metal Blade levels, but like, nothing in the Mega Man series really is, for the most part, except like the DLC weapons in 10. They kinda learned their lesson after 2. But even still, it's pretty efficient. But yeah, no, like... Not my favorite special weapons of all time, but I don't care as much in this game. I like the dash far better than the slide from Mega Man, because it's not just a dodge mechanic, it also makes levels go faster, and it just makes everything else feel so much more twitchy and fast and fun, and that is why I typically prefer the base gameplay of an X game over the classic series. But of course, as I've mentioned before, Mega Man X has high highs and extremely low lows. X1 is probably one of the highest highs, which is not great in the grand scheme of things. You typically want your first game to not be the best because you want everything that comes after it to be better. But while X1 might be one of the best examples of an X game, in my opinion, next time we won't be moving on to something worse. I mean, it's not as good as X1, but you know what? I think X2 is actually pretty solid. People will disagree with me. It's a lot more contentious than X1, which everybody agrees is great, but nonetheless, I am looking forward to the next game. For now, though, let's just watch this thanks for playing screen for a very prolonged period of time. You would think I would have cut this off by now. Oh, but what's this? Oh, there's Sigma. Of course, he's vowing his revenge. I mean, you thought we were done with having the same villain over and over again just because we were moving on to a newer, more serious series than the classic one? You fool, you utter imbecile. Sigma will find more bodies. Oh, there are always more. And he will see us very soon. Perhaps he'll see us in the next game. I've been Fefner, and I'll see you next time for that one.
Yes, in order to ensure our future and speed along our evolution.
What on earth are you talking about?